Today we're checking out the MC8 Pro by Morningstar. This is an 8-button, fully customizable MIDI foot controller. There are so many inputs and outputs that this thing has, and you can connect multiple devices to this. It has wireless Bluetooth MIDI built into it. It has USB-C device and host ports. It's fully programmable with 128 banks with 3 pages with 8 buttons on each of those, and each button can send up to 32 MIDI messages at once. And you can assign multiple types of presses. So you can do one thing on a press, one thing on a hold press, one thing on a release, one thing on a double tap. You can label and color code all of your buttons. It also has a MIDI dictionary, which is really helpful so you can look up what commands you need to send to your MIDI devices. Overall, this is just a simple or advanced MIDI hub for all of your inputs and outputs for your MIDI gear. I was trying to figure out how to demo this project because there's so much that it can do. I shot over 2 hours of footage for this. I really wanted to show you guys how much this thing can do. So the first thing I actually want to start with is I'm going to show you a couple of things that it's able to do so you know what our end goal is. So here's just some examples of stuff that it can do. So first of all, I can connect it to my computer via USB-C, and I can use it to control Ableton. For example, you can see that I have it programmed to go down and up songs, to select the song in my set list, and then I can push play. And notice that the play button now turns into the stop button, because this button will cycle between play and stop, and the screen will display that, which is really cool. I can do things like turning on and off the click track. This is the Ableton session for my band Spiral Cell. I have a failsafe where if my vocoder effect stops working, I can turn on backing vocals. So I can push that here. I can also push this button to trigger the talk preset in order to turn off all of my effects. And it's not for just connecting to a single device either. I have connected to a voice processor, an HX Stomp, a Quad Cortex, and a B-Beat for backing tracks. As you can see, with one button press, it can load my patches for my song Causality. One button press to control multiple different pieces of gear all at once. FYI, I have 4 things connected. I still have 5 other slots that I could use to connect other pieces of gear. I also can connect to it wirelessly via Bluetooth, and you can see I can do stuff like control stage tracks 3, so I can scroll my lyrics. I can push play in order to start a song, but then in order to stop it, I have to hold press in order to stop it. I've set up 2 different types of commands. I can also turn on and off autoplay, and you can see that it reflects on the screen, so it'll say autoplay on or autoplay off. I can also select a different song, and then I can hold down in order to confirm the new selection. So each button can do many different things. I also can connect an expression pedal. I can also add extra buttons if I needed. And when I was controlling the B-Beat, that actually doesn't even have MIDI in. It has a relay port as well to connect to non-MIDI gear. There are still so many other things that this can do, but I just wanted to show you some examples before I showed you how to start programming this. Before we get started with programming MIDI, if you know nothing about programming MIDI, you don't know what program changes are, or control changes are, or CC values and stuff like that, I do highly recommend that you watch my beginner's guide to MIDI programming first, and then come back and watch this video. Morningstar has multiple models of this product. However, in this video, I'm going to be going over the MC8 Pro specifically, but be sure to check out their website to see what other options and models that they have, so you can decide which one is right for you and your needs. I do want to say many thanks to Morningstar for sending this over and for sponsoring the video. Just as always, all opinions are my own, and I'm going to go over this product in detail so you can see if this is something that's right for you and your MIDI needs. Also, at the end of the video, I will be doing a giveaway for one of my subscribers, so consider subscribing if you're not already subscribed, and let's check out the MC8 Pro by Morningstar. Okay, first let's go over some of the inputs and outputs. First of all, you have 8 different buttons, but looking at the top, we have a ton of different inputs and outputs. So first of all, you have standard 5-pin MIDI in and out. And over here on the side, you also have 2 ports for MIDI in and out that are 3.5mm TRS MIDI. This device can either be powered with 9-volt center negative power, or it can also be powered via the USB device slot as well. You do have 2 USB-C ports. One is for a device and one is for a host. I will show you some examples later of how this works. If you're not familiar, generally, if you're connecting to a computer, tablet, or phone, you go out of the device port. If you're going to control external gear like keyboards or synth or standalone gear, such as the Quad Cortex, which is how I'm going to connect to my Quad Cortex actually, you want to use the host port. You have 4 TRS 1/4-inch Omniports. Now these can be set up for either inputs or outputs, and you can configure these to be either a standard 1/4-inch MIDI output, an expression pedal, aux inputs, tons of customization. I'll show you that here later. And you also have 2 relay ports for connecting gear such as amps or pedals that don't accept MIDI, but instead accept external aux switches. So this could be used to change your amp or set the delay tempo on your delay pedal. Again, examples are coming. I'm just showing you how many inputs and outputs you have on this thing. So there are multiple different ways to program this device. You can connect it to your computer or your tablet, and you can use either the desktop editor, and I will link to that down below in the description, or you can also use the Morningstar app either on iPad or on iPhone. You can connect a cable directly into it, or one thing that's great about this is it has Bluetooth built in. So on the app, go to Devices, connect to the MC8, and now you're connected. Should be no surprise, I'm doing this wirelessly. If you've seen my channel before and you know how much I hate cables. And then you're going to go home and click Live Editor. Once you get into here, you just want to click that you want to connect via Bluetooth. You are now able to program the MC8. I know this intro is already long enough, but there's 3 settings that I want you to do to make your life a lot easier. So if you're on a computer, go to your editor settings and go to load preset data into editor using switch press. You don't have to worry about this on an iPad, but what this means is if I go to a specific bank, like if I go right here, that bank will show up on the editor. Again, you don't have to worry about that on the iPad. Next, I want you to go to your MIDI dictionary, and you're going to hit select device, and you're going to search for any of the gear that you control with MIDI. So for this example, there's a couple of them that I'm going to demo. Neural DSP Quad Cortex is going to be one of them, and I'm going to check mark that one. I'm also going to do the line 6. I'm going to do the HX stomp. Put a check mark to all of your favorite pedals. They've got quite a few of them in here, but not all of them are going to be in here. I have the Boss VE500. That one doesn't happen to be in here. If it's not in here, it's no big deal, but just add your favorite devices and the devices that you want to control with MIDI into the MIDI dictionary. Again, trust me, it's going to be worth it. And last but not least, I want you to click your controller settings and go down to Edit MIDI Channel Settings. This seems so intimidating, but all I want you to do, if you're controlling multiple pieces of gear at once, then best practices is to assign each of those to a different MIDI channel. So what you want to do actually is you want to go to the MIDI channels and you just want to put the name of the equipment that you're using. So for example, my HX Stomp reads on MIDI channel 4, so I've filled in MIDI channel 4, HX Stomp. My Quad Cortex reads on MIDI channel 6, so I've put Quad Cortex on MIDI channel 6. Stage Tracks reads on MIDI channel 9, so I filled that out, and my SPDSX reads on MIDI channel 10, and then my lighting controller Maestro DMX reads on MIDI channel 16. Fill all of that out, and then hit Save Settings. All right, that's enough. Let's actually start programming this. So at the top, you have your Edit Preset or Edit Banks. So within the pedal, there are 128 different banks. And the way that you get to those is by clicking the bank button right here. As you can see that I have multiple different ones in here. Now within each of those banks, there are 24 different presets. So I am currently in bank 1, which you can see is empty, and I can click here to go to some of the different presets. Presets A through X. Now you might be going, well, where are those? Because you only have A through H on here. You can push the B and C button together to toggle through different pages. So see, now I'm on page 2 and it's I through P. Next page, Q through X. The first thing I like to do actually is go to Edit Bank. So I'm going to click that up here. And here's where you're going to give the bank a name. So for this example, I'm going to control my Quad Cortex. So I'm just going to call this Quad Cortex. Remember, I am going to start with just simple programming. I'm going to try to make it more difficult as we go along. You also can give it a description. So I can just say Quad Cortex Demo. And then I'm going to hit Save Bank Settings. Now, when I've done that, you can see that it actually says Quad Cortex on the screen now. If you want to display the description, you can enable that right here, Save Bank Settings, and now you can see the description shows up right here. So the first thing I do is I give my bank a name. Now, let's go back to Edit Presets, and now here, that's where I'm going to program what each of these buttons are going to do. So, what do I want Footswitch A to do? I'm going to click, I can either click that, or I can click up here, and choose the preset that I want to program, preset A in this example. Now what I want to do is I actually want to give it a name. So you'd think it would be long name, but you actually want to do short name, and I'm going to call this Footswitch A. And the reason why is because for this example, I want to control Footswitch A on my Quad Cortex. And if I save the preset, you can see that that shows up right here. It says Footswitch A. One of the things that's really cool about the MC8 is you can actually change the color of the text, the strip, and the background. So for the strip, I'm going to change that to just like a pink color. And for the text, I'm going to leave it as white. But let's say the background, let's also make it kind of like a pink color. So now you can see that the color has changed. So I can change the strip, change it to like a red color. Let's go ahead and save that. And now you can see that the strip is red, the background is pink, and the text is white. Again, I can change this to whatever I would like and make it look the way that I want it to. Now scroll down here, and this is where you decide of what messages you want this button to send. You can put in 32 simultaneous messages at once from one button press, which is pretty incredible. But let's go to message 1. And under no action, click that. And you can choose all of these types of actions. The most common one is going to be press. So let's start with that. And you're going to choose the type of command that you're going to send. You can send a program change, a control change, a note, on or off. There's sysx, there's MIDI clock. There's all sorts of different commands in here. They have one specifically for Strymon, Fractal Kemper. You can even send a keystroke. There's so many different messages that you can send in here. The most common ones will be PC, CC, and note on and off command. So if I wanted to send a note command, I would click that. And here's where I would program the note, the velocity, and the MIDI channel. I wanted to point this out because I absolutely love that they include both the number and the note. The number of times that I've had to pull up a chart to say, hey, this is what you have to do if you need to convert it. I absolutely love that they say note 100 is E7. I wish every MIDI editor did that. But say I wanted to send note 100 at a velocity of 80 on MIDI channel 7, just using this as an example. So you can program this manually. So if I wanted to send a control change, I could do control change 96 at a value of 127 on MIDI channel 8, for example. And you might have noticed, this is the reason why I had you do that earlier. On the MIDI channel, it displays which gear is being controlled by which MIDI channel. So if I wanted to send a message to control my boss pedal, I would choose MIDI channel 3. Very nice that it gives you this list right here so you can see which devices that you're controlling on which channel. So in this one, you can program it manually, or what I really love is that you can click this Open MIDI Dictionary button right here. And what you can do is you can either select the device and you can search through here for the different pedals or different effects that they have in the database. But like I mentioned, why we added those favorites earlier, I can actually just click Neural DSP Quad Cortex and it puts that in here. And I say, what parameter am I trying to control? And it has all of these in here. So it already knows what commands need to be sent to the Quad Cortex. I'm trying to control Footswitch A. So I'm going to do enable bypass Footswitch A. And you can see that it says that is CC35 at a value of 127. So I'm going to hit apply, and it automatically applies that onto that foot switch. So that foot switch is now assigned to send MIDI CC35 at a value of 127. But do not forget, you still have to select your MIDI channel and make sure that you have selected Quad Cortex, which is MIDI channel 6 in my case. Now that that is programmed, so I can either program it manually or I can use the MIDI dictionary, and I'm going to hit Save Preset, and that has saved to Footswitch A. So now when I push Footswitch A, it's going to send this MIDI command. So now let's get it connected to the Quad Cortex. So I could just go 5-pin MIDI out to the 5-pin MIDI in on the Quad Cortex. However, for this example, I'm going to connect via USB MIDI because the Quad Cortex can receive both 5-pin or USB MIDI. And I'm going to connect it to my host USB port output from the Quad Cortex. If for some reason you're connecting over USB-C and one's not working, try the other one. But to control a Quad Cortex, you want to come out of the host port. So now when I push this button, you can see that it's turning on and off Footswitch A on the Quad Cortex. Everything is programmed successfully. This button is programmed. So that was as simple as it gets. Let's go ahead and program the next one. I'm going to click the B button because that's what I want to program. Let's name this one. I want this to control the tap tempo. And let's change the color just because we can. You also have these kind of like, these ones that aren't like a solid color, which can give an interesting effect. Again, I'm just choosing kind of random colors, save preset, and now you can see that it has tap tempo like that. Text kind of is hard to read, so let's just make it black. And now this button is the tap tempo. So let's scroll down here. I want this to be controlled on a press. This is going to be a control change. I can either program it manually, or I can open my MIDI dictionary, select the Quad Cortex, tempo BPM, and hit apply. I'm going to hit Save Preset. That has saved to here. And now when I push this button, oh, well, what's the reason why? You will probably do this multiple times, just like I did. You make sure that you want to set the MIDI channel. It's very important, and that's why it helps to have that name right there. So now let's save it, and now when I tap the button, you can see that I am controlling the beats per minute. Pretty simple, right? So already understanding it, let's go ahead and program the next one and make it a little bit more complicated. With all of these examples, I'm going to show you some situations that you might run into, and that's why I specifically chose these. So for this next one, I want to load scene 3. If you're not familiar with Quad Cortex, They actually have like 8 different scenes that you can load. I specifically want to send a command to load my octave pitch down when I play with Lola Black. It's a patch that I use. So let's go ahead and program it in C. Short name is scene 3. Give it a color because we can. Hit save preset. Let's see how that looks. That text is quite ugly. I don't know. Just choose in random colors so you can see that. On a press, control change, open MIDI dictionary, quad cortex. Now for this one, I want to do scene select. So you might just think, okay, I'm going to hit apply and everything's good. Hit save. It's going to automatically load scene 3 when I push this button. Even after explaining it, I still forget to do this. I'm leaving that in because I promise you're going to do the same thing that I did. But when I click this, it should load scene 3, right? But it loads scene 8. Why is that? Because you have to set the CC value. So you have to change the CC value. So if I set this to 0, which I'm just going to do as an example, that's actually going to load scene 1 over here. And now MIDI is confusing because there's 8 different scenes, but MIDI starts at 0. So I actually have to send control value of 2 in order to trigger scene 3. So now when I click this, it loads scene 3. That is something to be aware of. Watch your CC value if it's not responding the way you want it to. For the next one, what I actually want to do, I want to load scene 7. So there's one other thing that I want to show you in here. You can actually click this button right here to copy the preset. Click right here in order to go to this next preset, and then hit paste preset. And it's going to put all of that info in here. So I don't have to reprogram all of that. You can copy and paste it. You also can copy and paste individual messages as well with copy and paste right here, which is very convenient at saving on time, especially if you're going to do a similar thing. So in this case, I'm going to change this to say scene 7. Let's change the color. And now what CC value would I need to send in order to load scene 7? I need to send CC value of 6. So now I'm going to hit save preset. That has saved right here. Click that button, and I can now load scene 7. Switch between scene 3 and scene 7, and act like I pushed Footswitch A, which on the quad cortex, if I'm in this mode, it just depends on the mode that I'm in. Not a video on quad cortex. I have a video showing you how to set up the quad cortex if you're interested. I'm just showing you that this is how you can control it. Scene 3, scene 7. All of that's been pretty easy so far. Let's take it to the next step. So for the next thing, what I want to do is I actually want to turn on and off gig view. This is kind of programming view, and this is gig view. Again, you're probably already getting ahead of me. You're like, all right, Scott, I already know how to do this. Click this button, name it gig view, give it a weird color, go down here, press, control change, open the MIDI dictionary, quad cortex, and then open and close gig view. Hit apply, learn from my mistakes, set it to quad cortex, and hit save preset, right? You've already figured it out. It's totally going to work. So watch, when I click this, it does load up gig view, but it's supposed to be gig view on and then off. So to open it and close it. When I click it again, you can see it's not getting out of gig view. I want to open gig view with one button press and then push it again, and it closes out of gig view and go back to this mode when I'm done. I can only load gig view. I can't get out of it. So what's going on with this? So if you run into this situation, you actually need to enable a toggle. So what a toggle is going to do, it's going to toggle between 2 different messages. So there's a couple of things to set this up. So I am going to actually give these 2 different names. Short name, I'm going to say gig view on. And then under toggle name, I'm going to say gig view off because I want it to switch the display depending on which mode I'm in. Now over here under position 2, this will be how the text in the background and the strip looks in the toggle position. So you can program that as well. Something that's important to do is to do toggle mode on. That is very important. You have to turn that on. So let me go ahead and save the preset. You can see now it says gig view on, and when I push the button, it now says gig view off. So it's going to cycle or toggle between 2 different display modes. But as you can see, it's still not working. So what you have to do is you have to scroll down here. What you want to do is you want to set this position right here. So you can either set this to both positions, or you can set it to position 1. And then this next message right here, you set to position 2. So it's going to cycle between these messages. When you press it the first time, it's going to send this one. And when you press it the second time, it's going to send this one. So this is actually really easy to do. I'm going to hit copy this one. I'm going to paste the same MIDI message down here. Now, in order to do a toggle, sometimes the value needs to be set to 127 in order to enable something, and then set to 0 in order to disable something. So in position 1, I'm setting a CC value of 127, and then the second position, so the toggle switch, I need to set the CC value to 0. So let's go ahead and save that preset. Now, on the first time I'm going to push it, it's going to send CC 46 at a value of 127, and then the second time I push it, it'll send a value of 0. So first time I push it, it loads it, and then when I push it again, now it gets out of it. So I'm toggling between enabling and disabling gig view. Sometimes you won't need to do this. You can see Footswitch A, I didn't need to do that at all, and it does turn it on and off. Or you might be in a situation where you do need to send a toggle message to turn something on and then turn something off. Now, this is all good and exciting, but this is me controlling one other device. What if I want to control multiple devices at once? Well, you can do that, and that's what I'm going to show you on this F preset. Okay, for this next example, what I want to do is I want this button to load a specific preset on my quad cortex and load a specific preset on the Boss controller. So I've connected to this just with the 5-pin MIDI output. Let's go ahead and go to the F preset right here. So when I push this button, I want it to load my lead patch, and I also want it to go to the ballad patch on the Boss vocal effect processor. That's what I want it to do. This is editor Scott here. I didn't realize when I was filming that you couldn't see anything on the display screen, so I had to do some editing trickery to be able to display it like this. The screen doesn't normally look at that. That's just the only way I could display it. So let's give this one a name. Let's just call it lead ballad. I'm choosing some ugly colors, I know, but just deal with it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to program just like we have. Let's do controller change. Neural DSP, and I want it to select, scene select, and I want it to load the 8th scene right here. Don't forget to set your MIDI, save preset, and you can see that it does in fact load the lead setting. But it's not doing anything over here, so that's why we want to send a second message. This one, we're going to do a press. This one's going to be a program change, so I'm going to choose program change. What program change number do I want to send? I believe it's 1. This is what I know because it is patch 2 on here. So likely it is program change 1. And I want to send this on MIDI channel 3. I don't want to send that to the quad cortex. I don't want it to change. Quad cortex reads on 6. This reads on 3. Now I hit save preset. And now when I click this, it should load the lead and it should load the ballad. And ta-da, I'm able to send commands to 2 separate devices to control them. But what if I also want it to go to, for example, lead effect and load the rock setting at the same time? And what if I want to do that on the same button? So under MIDI message 3, in this case, what I'm going to set this to, instead of press, I'm going to set it to long press. I want to send a control change to select the scene. In this case, I want scene 4. So I'm going to set the MIDI value to 3 and set the MIDI channel to quad cortex. It's important to save your work as you're going. But now on the next one, I also want, when I do a long press, I want to send a program change on MIDI channel 3, and I want to send program change 0 because it's going to load the first one. So I'm going to hit save. So now when I push this button, let's actually get to something completely different. When I push this button, it should load the lead and the ballad, which it did. And now when I hold this button, it should load lead effect and rock mode. There you go. So I'm sending 2 different commands. I can push in order to send one set of commands, and I can hold press in order to send another set of commands. And I mean, you can keep going with this. You can say on a double tap, I want to, on a quad cortex, load the tuner pedal. So now when I push this button, it does one set of commands. When I hold this, it does another set of commands. And then when I double tap, it does yet another set of commands. So you already have the multiple different pages of stuff that you can do. And you can send different commands with a press, a release, a double tap. So much different flexibility in here. All right, let's go to the next one. And in this one, what I want to show you, what if you don't want to send all these messages at once? What if you don't want to send every single one of these at once? What if instead you want to send them in a specific order? So you want to send this one, and then next time you press it, you want to send this one. Next time you press it, you want to send the third one. That's what we're going to do on the G preset now. All right, so on scene G, what I actually want to do this time is I want to set this so that I can cycle through. We have scene mode, we have preset mode, and we have stomp mode. So I actually want to switch between these three. So a toggle wouldn't work because it would just toggle between two different ones. But instead, I want to switch between all three of those. So let's load preset G. This one I'm going to call mode, set the color. And now this time, on a press, control change, I can use my MIDI dictionary or I can look it up, but I'd rather personally just do it here. Change mode to preset. That's the one that I want to choose on MIDI channel 6. So let's go ahead and save that. So now when I push this button, it's going to load preset mode. But that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to cycle through them. So I'm going to copy this one actually. I'm going to paste it down here. I can go back to the MIDI dictionary if I want to and say that I want to load scene mode. But what it's doing is actually just changing the CC value. So CC47, a value of 0 loads preset mode, value of 1 loads a different mode, and a value of 2 loads another mode. So I know that for the next one, I'm going to paste this in and set CC value to 2. So again, you can program it if you know how it works, or you can use the MIDI dictionary. Now when I push this button, it's going to send all three of those commands at once. So see, it just loaded through all three of them very quickly. That's not what I want to have happen. So instead, what you want to do is you want to enable message scroll on. So now what this is going to do, it's going to go one by one and send those messages. Message 1, message 2, followed by message 3. So now when I push this button, you can see it's not working, right? That's because in order to use this mode, you do have to set them to release. So in order to cycle through these, you have to set them to release. That is one thing to know about this mode. They have to be set to release. So now when I save it, now when I push in, nothing happens. But when I release, it goes to the next mode, and then the next mode. So you are able to do that on a release. And it'll just cycle through each of those messages. And also do just keep in mind, you can also reorder this. So let's say I want message 2 to be first. I can just click and drag it and move it up to position 1. Also, a bonus thing that you can do here is under the name, you can do %G. And if you save that, it'll display the different modes. So mode 0, 1, and 2. That might be a cool option just so that you can display each of the modes. So we know how to send commands. We know how to send commands with multiple different presses. So when you press, when you hold, you send different commands to different pieces of gear. You know how to scroll through different messages. You know how to do a toggle. There's one more thing that I think is going to be very helpful for you to know, and that's what I'm going to program on the H patch right here. So this one is going to be called Bank Up because I want to switch through my banks on the quad cortex. Going with random colors. Let's see how ugly I can make it this time by just choosing random colors. Hey, that's not bad actually. I'm going to stick with that one. So this one is pretty cool. What you can do, I'm going to set it to a press, and you can do a program change. This is the way that I like to do it, is I want to say increase from the last program change and send that command. So whatever the last program change that was sent, I want to increase it by 1 and send that program change. And again, I want to send this to the quad cortex. So I'm going to save the preset. And you're going to notice it's going to scroll up the banks on the quad cortex. So now it's on 1B, 1C, 1D, 1E, 1F, and so on and so forth. It's scrolling up each of the different banks. Something I'm going to do now actually is I'm going to just copy this entire preset. I'm going to go to my D foot switch right here. I'm going to paste that, but I want to name this one bank down. And I want this to send a program change, but I want it to decrease the last send program change. So now what I can do is I can bank up and go through my patches, and then bank down and go through my different patches right here. If I wanted it to go to a specific preset, like if I wanted to go specifically to the Lola Black preset, I would have to program that just as an individual program change. But you can say increase or decrease the last message that was sent. Now, something you might notice actually, and this might happen to you, is you'll notice that my boss pedal is actually changing. I don't want that. I just want to control my quad cortex. What's going on there? I've set this to only send to the quad cortex, right? So why is this changing patches when I do this? Well, the reason why is because the boss, it'll respond on MIDI channel 3 for control changes, but it reads all program changes. Kind of an annoying thing about the boss, but that's okay because there is a workaround here. And I did want to show you that because this might be something that you might also run into. So if this happens to you, go to your controller settings, go to Edit Channel Settings. And what I can do is I can say everything that outputs on MIDI channel 6, I can choose what ports I want that to go out. So I'm currently just plugged into USB host port, so I can disable all of them. You can hit clear or select all, just FYI, so I can clear all of those and say only go out the USB host port. So now let me save that. But now you can see that anything on MIDI 6 is only going to go out the MIDI device port. So now it is controlling the quad cortex, but it is not sending messages to the boss. So this setting right here is very, very helpful. I can say that I only want MIDI channel 6 messages to go out of this port, or I can say I only want it to go out the MIDI DIN port, or I could say I want it to go out via Bluetooth, DIN, and Omniport 1. So in this case, I'm just going to say USB host port. Very, very valuable if you run into that situation where you're getting weird messages sent to your devices. So I think that will be enough for kind of the basic programming. This, again, just barely scratches the surface of this device. There's so many other things that you can do. And remember, this was all just one page of this bank. I can actually toggle to the next page and the next page. I have 3 pages of stuff that I can send here. So I can go to page 2 and start programming that. There is also something worth knowing. If you go to your edit bank settings, in this bank, you can say the limit of the pages. So let's say I only want to see page 1 and I save this, save bank settings. Now these 2 buttons won't do anything, which can be nice if I only ever plan to stay on this first page right here. I don't have to worry about accidentally triggering that. Or if I want to say, if I only want to have 2 pages and save that, now I can only toggle between page 1 and page 2. There is no page 3. So definitely worth knowing. You can go up banks by pushing these 2 buttons together. So you can see this is one that I've used for lights. And you can do bank down by pushing the A and B button together. So that is some of the main basic programming of the MC8 Pro, but there are still so many things that this can do. For example, you have those Omniports here on the top, and we can assign what all 4 of them do. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to go ahead and clear out this first A block right here. And you actually can do that under the preset. You can click this button right here and it'll clear the preset completely. So let's go ahead and save that. And now this one is blank, so I can start programming other things. So there are multiple things that this Omniport can do. By default, it's set to expression input. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in a TRS cable into one of them. So if I plug into expression pedal 1, and I'm just going to plug into this super cheap expression pedal that I have, you can actually see it says expression 1, and you can see as I move it up and down, you can see it goes from 0 to 100. I can plug into some of the other ports as well, expression 4, and I get a signal right here. So let's go ahead and program this. I'm going to go to controller settings, and I'm going to go to configure Omniports. So you have Omniports 1 through 4, and you can see they're set to expression by default. You can click here and you can change some of these types, which I will show you some other ones here in a second, but we'll leave it on expression, which it's set by default. Let's go ahead and go back to the preset, and in every bank, you can set what you want the expression to do. So you can see it actually automatically loads it for you. If you want to get there, you also can click preset and then scroll down here to your 4 different expression pedals. So I'm going to go to expression pedal 4. All right, so let's go ahead and program what type of command this is going to send now. So what type of commands do I want to send? Again, I have 32 types of commands that I can send here. And the most common one is probably CC linear response. Set to linear, choose your control change number. So for this example, I'm just going to choose control change 102. And then you can choose your minimum value and your maximum value. So if you want it in the heel position to be at a value of 20, and then at the highest position to be at a value of 100, you can do that. And you can choose your MIDI channel as well. I'm actually going to demo this of what I can do with this on the HX Stomp, just as an example. Then let's go ahead and save the preset. So now this is sending control change 102, and it's going from a value of 20 up to a value of 100. So now I have my HX Stomp connected, and I actually have it assigned that it's going to control the level of feedback of my delay. I have that set to read on MIDI CC 102. So now when I move this, I can get more feedback and less feedback. And you can see that it goes from about 16% to about 80%. And that's because of the minimum and maximum value. If I set this to 0 all the way up to 127 and save that, now it will go from 0 to 100% on the feedback. But if I set the minimum value to something a little less extreme, like 40 to 60 or something like that, now it's going to move a lot less. So minimum value will be 31, maximum value will be 47. So that's what's really nice about setting your minimum and maximum value. And again, you can send multiple messages as well. You can send a pitch bend message. You can send CC when the toe is down or when the heel is down. You can send a program change when the heel is down. So I can send program change 0 when the heel is down, so it'll load a different preset. See, so it loads my prologue preset. I mean, so many different things that you can do with an expression pedal. So that's a way to program an expression pedal with one of the Omniports. All right, but what if you don't want it to be an expression pedal? What if you need more than 8 buttons? What if you want to expand on this? That's another thing you can do with the Omniports. So I can get an extra 2 buttons with this little TT2 2-button foot switch. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to your controller settings, configure Omniports. I've plugged into Omniport 4. And I have set that one to TRS Aux Switch. That's what I want to set it to. So I'm going to go ahead and plug it in with the TRS cable. So on the tip and the rings, every pedal is going to be different. This is going to be tip and this is going to be ring. What do I want to do? I could do this one to go bank down and then this one to go bank up on the Morningstar. And now this will go up and down the banks. So you can see I'm on 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then I can go down banks with this button. So I don't have to push these 2 buttons together. I can have this as a single button in order to go up and down banks. But again, you have all of these options right here. If you specifically want it to load a certain preset, jump to a certain bank, start and stop MIDI clock. I mean, there's so many different things that you can do. I personally would like to have that to just go up and down banks. But that's another way that you can use the Omniport. You also could configure this. So let's say Omniport 3. You can also just set to a MIDI out type A or type B. This can be really confusing. I'm not really sure. If you're having issues with it not sending MIDI messages, try changing type A and type B. It drives me crazy, but you can just set it as a standard MIDI out, and then you can connect to it and do things like control the quad cortex via that Omniport as well. So that is also an option if you just want to turn it into a standard MIDI output. And then just FYI, don't forget you do also have those MIDI in and out ports here on the side. Those are 3.5 millimeter TRS, whereas the Omniports are 1/4 inch TRS. And they do have the adapters online if you need to convert those to like 5-pin MIDI or something like that. Might be worth having. So that's pretty much all of the ports except for the relay ports. So we have these 2 relay ports up here. Most of these are for devices that accept an external foot switch, most commonly with like pedals and amps. So you know how like an amp has a way to switch from a clean to distortion or turn on and off reverb. You can do that from here as well. I actually sold all of my amps. I have a video explaining why if you're interested. If you are interested in specifically setting this up with an amp, Morningstar does have a great demo on their YouTube channel, which I'll link to down below. They actually have just a great YouTube channel in general. So I was like, what device can I do if I don't have an amp or a pedal? But the B-Beat actually does accept that. It has an expression pedal, or not expression pedal, it has a pedal input that you use in order to control this. This is a device that can play your backing tracks, your MIDI, and your video out as a standalone device. You don't need a computer for this. Pretty cool little device. So I have 2 videos on this if you are interested. But the thing that I'm talking about is that it does have a pedal input right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to program this button right here, the one that I set blank. I don't think I need to rename everything. I think you guys understand that now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this to on a press, and the action is going to be relay switching. So I get to choose my port. Remember, you can set any of those 4 Omniports to these as well, but I'm going to come out of port B. I'm trying as hard as I can to make this look clean as possible. So now this is going to send a message out to the relay port. This tap NO and tap NC, this is confusing. This is the way that they word it in the manual. Honestly, you're probably just going to have to try some different things, but I'm going to say just tap no, because I actually figured this out ahead of time. Save the preset, and now you can see what this actually does is if you plug in a pedal, you can actually push play and stop. So push the button, and you can see now it's paused, so the playback has paused, and then push it again, and then the playback continues. So if you want to pause or stop or start a song, you have that as an option with an expression input. So this is not something that accepts MIDI. This is an expression input right here. Similar to how an amp has that on the back, I can now send relay messages from this device out this port. You'll have to see how your device responds to expression input, but just more configuration that you can do from this all-in-one MIDI hub. Pretty impressive. Okay, a couple more things worth knowing about. Again, I'm not really going to name things. I think you understand that now, but I want to just show you a couple more actions that are worth knowing. You also can do device. All of these device ones will apply to the MC8 specifically. So I could say bank jump, and I could say that when I push this button, I want to jump to my Ableton bank and which page. Now you might notice that when I try to do that, it's not working. That's because it's in edit mode right now. So if I disconnect, now it's not in edit mode right now. Now when I click this, it'll load the Ableton bank. So now it jumps to the Ableton bank. But see, you can program this to control stuff within the MC8 as well. I mean, you could set the MIDI through if you want the MIDI through to even be on or off. So you can set it to MIDI through off or MIDI through on. I mean, you can send so many messages to the MC8 itself if you want to as well. Another command worth knowing, program change on multi-channel. So you can choose your program PC20, but I only want to send it on to the HX Stomp and to stage tracks. I can choose that in here. That's the difference between just a standard program change where I get one MIDI channel, or I can send it on multiple different channels of my choosing. There is the MIDI Monitor on the computer, which is insanely helpful for knowing what's happening. I've had to diagnose a few things, and using that MIDI monitor, when you push a button, you'll see what it's doing. It is so helpful to diagnose the problems if something isn't working. There is, under the control settings, under the general configuration, some of this is worth knowing in general. I like to enable load last used bank on power up. You can set ignore MIDI clock information, which I did for this demo. Enabling MIDI through, if you want to send MIDI messages into this and send it out somewhere else, you'd want to enable that. And scrolling down here, these are your MIDI clock and your MIDI through settings. So you can enable or disable where you want MIDI clock to go. Very, very helpful. But this right here, the MIDI through settings, this is really helpful. And this is actually what I've done. And I had to do that for my lighting programming. So this is how I use this live. I can trigger my lighting scenes on my Maestro DMX if you're interested in that. It's a pretty cool lighting product that accepts MIDI, and you can trigger different lighting scenes, and it listens to the music and does like a lighting scene. It's pretty cool. Check it out if you're interested. But what I needed to do is I have a bunch of different MIDI commands in stage tracks. All of these are my MIDI commands that I send to the MC8 to send to the Maestro DMX controller. So I need to send Bluetooth in, and then I need to send that out, in this case, USB device port, because I connect via the USB device port. That's what this means. Bluetooth MIDI in, I want to route that through to the USB device port. If I also wanted to route it out the 5-pin DIN port, I would enable that here. If I wanted to output it out the 3.5mm port, I would enable that here. But I personally just need to do that over USB. But let's say if you're getting MIDI in from the MIDI in port, the 5-pin MIDI in port, and you need to route that out to Bluetooth, you would enable that here. So these are all of your MIDI through settings. It does say to beware of MIDI loops, so don't just enable everything. That is something that you can run into. But very, very helpful that you have a way to enable the MIDI through settings. This is actually what I needed in order to control my lights. FYI, if you change any of these settings, you do have to restart your device in order for it to work. There is also the MIDI message converter that is under your controller settings. So you can actually convert certain MIDI commands. So I can say that if I get a command in here that is a note on command, if I get note 10 on MIDI channel 10, I want to convert that to a program change, and I want to convert that to program change 10 on MIDI channel 10. So if I get an incoming message of a note command, I can convert that into a program change, and you get a bunch of different ones in here that you can program. Pretty advanced stuff. Just so many things that you can do to get this to work in the way that you want it to. I need to make sure to turn this off so that I don't accidentally save this and get to my next gig and wondering why it's converting. On the computer, you can create and restore a backup. All of your MIDI programming, you can save it as a JSON file and then get it back if something happens or you accidentally screw something up. Something that I didn't go over was the shift name. So shift is like a third toggle mode. I'm actually just going to link to the Morningstar YouTube channel because they do a good job explaining that. And this video has already gone on long enough, but I'm going to link to info about toggle group as well as shift mode down there if you are interested. I didn't cover those. And let me go ahead and disconnect from the iPad. If for some crazy reason you're not able to program on either the app or the computer, you even have a way to hold E and H and you can start to program in here. So I can go in here, I can hit OK to edit the preset name, and I can give it a short name. You can do all of it in here. That will be pretty tedious, but very nice that they give you that option that you are able to do all of that on the device itself if you truly ever get into that situation. Insanely powerful device. So much configuration. I feel like I barely scratched the surface of everything that it can do. All right, you made it. Unless if you're here because you skipped ahead just to find out about the giveaway. But I hope you guys found that video helpful. There's a lot of detail that went into this video. And hopefully you can start to understand the power of this device and how helpful it is for controlling all of your MIDI gear or even some of your non-MIDI gear as well. If you guys did find this video helpful, please do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button. Like I said, it took a while to put this video together. It truly does help out the channel, feed the YouTube algorithm gods and all that good stuff. So I would appreciate it. Like I said, I use this to control my lights with the Maestro DMX. It's been great. I love that I can either step on the foot switches and trigger it manually, which I do with one group that I play with, or I can send MIDI messages to this device via Bluetooth, and then it passes out the MIDI port that I specify. Just really cool. It works really well. I love how customizable it is. And if you do want to find out more information, I do recommend checking out the Morningstar YouTube channel. They do a lot of detail about some of the settings that they have, and they do a great job with their videos. It's very well produced and it makes a lot of sense. And it's really helpful if you want to learn some more things about how to program this. I will link to their YouTube channel as well as purchase links down below in the description. Like I mentioned, I'm going to do a giveaway to one of my subscribers, so consider subscribing if you're not already subscribed. I asked if we could do a giveaway, and Morningstar was kind enough to do a giveaway of the MC6 Pro. So it's very, very similar to this. It's just a 6-button one instead. The only thing that's different, it doesn't have MIDI Bluetooth on it. But if you do want to have MIDI Bluetooth, I do recommend the WIDI devices, which they also recommend as well. And I have multiple videos on my channel of those products. Just FYI, the giveaway for this week is only for the United States. But in order to enter, just leave a comment down below. Let me know how you would use this product to control your MIDI gear. What devices are you connecting to it? Would you use relay? Would you use the Omniports? What would you do with it? Just leave a comment down below in order to enter that giveaway. You only have 24 hours to enter the giveaway. I will announce the winner on this date right here. I will make a post. I will leave a pinned comment. I'll also announce it in my Instagram stories. Please remember, do not respond to scammers. Scammers sometimes show up when I do giveaways. Just remember, I will never, ever, ever, ever ask you for money for these giveaways. So if anyone messages you, says that they're me, and they start asking you for money that is a scammer, please do not give scammers money. Two other videos I want to check out. If you want to check out that Maestro DMX lighting device, that is a really cool piece of gear that accepts MIDI, and this is how I program my lights, and it can listen to the music, and you can set just a few parameters, and it'll listen to the music and make a light scene based on the activity of the show. So it's able to detect transitions and when the music slows down. It's really, really cool. Check out my video on that. And if you're curious on how I use stage tracks to send MIDI messages to my gear, I have 4 different videos on stage tracks, and I'll link to the first video in the 4-part video series at the end screen. You can check out both of those videos by clicking the links on your screen now. Again, many thanks to Morningstar for sending this awesome MIDI controller over. Don't forget to follow me on my social media pages at Scott Ewell Music. Thank you guys again for watching. If you have any other cool gear for me to check out, please leave them as a comment down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. It says expression 3. God damn it.